We're talking decades of experience, from negotiating with global suppliers to setting up entire manufacturing ecosystems. A man who's seen the inside of India's industrial growth story like very few others have. Mr. K Sridhar Upadhyaya.
So then I moved on a couple of other organizations, and then came the big break for me in 2007 when I joined as the head of supply chain at a German company.
And knowing the kind of industries you operate in, I can only imagine the layers of strategy, people management, long-term thinking that went into it.
I had a very strong vendor base who are located in and around Bangalore, who's really supported us and our vendor management.
Hello and welcome everyone to another insightful episode of FaceTime with Leaders by Directors Institute World Council of Directors. I'm truly looking forward to today's conversation because joining me is someone who brings a rare blend of operational mastery, leadership depth, and global perspective. We're talking decades of experience, from negotiating with global suppliers to setting up entire manufacturing ecosystems. A man who's seen the inside of India's industrial growth story like very few others have. Mr. K Sridhara Upadhyaya. Welcome to the show. It's a privilege to have you here with us.
Thanks a lot, Priya, for inviting me for this session. I'm very glad and grateful to Directors Institute for giving me an opportunity to share my really long journey of about 35 years in the industry and tell a little bit about what we have done in the industry over the last 35 years.
Absolutely. And there's so much I'm excited to unpack with you. You've already built supply chains that stayed resilient through global disruption, led cross-border transitions, and held leadership roles across some of the most respected engineering and manufacturing firms.
Yeah. True, Priya. Yep.
So it's been quite a journey. So without further ado, let's dive straight in. So Sridhar, you've had a fascinating journey through various industries and leadership roles. To get us started, could you walk us through your career path in your own words? We love to hear how it all began and what shaped your early years.
Oh, thanks, Priya. I started my career way back in 1990, exactly 35 years from now. Started my career with those days, it was not called as a multinational. It was a quasi-multinational, I would say. It was an organization, it was a German organization in collaboration with the state government organization. They were basically into switchgear manufacturing. So I was selected as a graduate engineer, basically it was an electrical engineering company.
Right.
And for no reason, I just picked up procurement as my first career, and I don't regret that over the last 35 years when I started my journey, when I look back into 1990s. So I would say like I was there in that firm for about 10 years. It was an exciting period for me. Started as a procurement engineer, and 4 years into this organization, one fine day my manager calls me and tells me, Sridhar, why don't you lead a complete product? I mean, that was a real challenge for me, I would say. And from there on, I would say my leadership journey started very early, and I'm really grateful for the manager who thrust upon me that responsibility. And for almost about 5 years, I dealt with products, localizing many of the products, the German products into India, and building up. Those days, it was not a supply chain entirely. It used to be called a material management. So there was no robust supply chain as we talk today. There was no tools, big tools those days. As you know, there were no big internet systems over there. And then it was a very small company and a very small team. Also, I had the opportunity to build. Couple of takeaways from that organization one was definitely even way back in the 90s, this company had very robust procurement systems, I would say. And I had an opportunity of interacting with the team, getting the ISO certification, because it was very new those days in 1991, 92, when I had the
Right.
opportunity to interact with TUV guys and
Mm.
get the SAP ISO certification. So that was how the journey went. And for about 10 years, I was there, and then moved on to another company in 2000, between 2000 and 2005. This was a company, again, an Indian company, but led by some brilliant technocrats. And this company was what you call these days a startup. They were into
Right.
manufacturing startups. So
Mm.
I stayed there for about almost 5 years, and very good opportunity for me to step into global sourcing, because
Mm.
in my previous career I didn't have much opportunity of global sourcing, but this company
Right.
really opened up for me into global sourcing, and gave me an opportunity to work with some very big public sector companies, like defense
Mm.
organization and power sector, big names in the public sector. And I was there for about 4 or 5 years. And when I left them, I was really ready after 15 years into my first phase of my career to take on the next level of supply chain uh, roles. So then I moved
Right.
on a couple of other organizations, and then came the big break for me in 2007 when I joined as the head of supply chain at a German company. They were the world
Right.
leaders in biotech manufacturing, and
Mm.
we were operating from a very small 2, 3 different setups in Bangalore. And then in 2009, I was lucky, in fact, and grateful to my manager then, who chose me to build a new facility, completely about 100,000 square new facility, a greenfield project near
Mm.
close to the outskirts of Bangalore. And for
Mm.
about 2 years, we built that facility and moved the entire organization over there. And at the same time, I had the opportunity of implementing the SAP software also in that organization. I was there for about 7, 8 years and built a complete supply chain team over there. And I had to travel quite a few times to Germany, interacting with the global team over there, and
Mm.
sharing the best practices. And that's where I really picked up working with the global companies, because until then I had not got the opportunity of working with the global teams. And this was the company where I got really an opportunity to work with global teams. And then
Right.
I moved on again in my career to another company where I'm currently now the director of operations. So this company I joined as head of supply chain. This again was a company which had 4, 5 different units operating in Bangalore, and they were world leaders in mining and mineral equipment manufacturing. So some world class products. And here again, I had some real good set of leaders and managers who worked with me, and I was a part of the leadership team right from the initial days. And then here again, after 2 years into this organization, we were planning to set up another greenfield facility somewhere outside
Mm.
Bangalore. And then in 2022, we started this new facility where I was deeply involved in putting up this new facility. And I had the opportunity of working with some real good leaders in India, as well as the global team back in the UK. This was a UK-based company, and the entire supply chain team were in UK, and I had the opportunity of working very closely with them, put up some real good systems in place. And in 2022, I was made the head of operations, moving on from supply chain role. And then for the last 3 years, I'm in this company now, heading the complete operation with 300 people reporting to me, under me, and part of the global leadership team now. It's been a fabulous journey, I would say, Priya.
Yeah, it's been quite an incredible journey for sure.
Yeah.
And we can see that there is like a wealth of experience and depth of knowledge that is clearly reflected in your response. Sridhar, growing a company's revenue nearly 3 times, uh, over isn't just impressive, it's transformational. And knowing the kind of industries you operate in, I can only imagine the layers of strategy, people management, long-term thinking that went into it. But what really stands out is numbers like that don't change unless there's a shift in mindset at the top. What did you start seeing or doing differently that turned this into such a powerful growth story?
First of all, Priya, I would first thank the company itself because it was they were the world leaders in that product segment, and we were fortunate enough to have such products in the market, and which became that much easier for the sales team to go behind and get the orders. We had a very strong market share in the entire country, and we were also exporting about 40% of our products to the global companies, to our own global locations. But yes, the growth happened three times, backed by a strong leadership, and I had the opportunity to have a very strong team within supply chain. The second thing was, I think the growth was fueled by some very strong vendor base. We had a very strong vendor base who are located in and around Bangalore, who's really supported us, and our vendor management and the supplier relationship was one which really helped us take us through this growth journey of almost three times over the last. This happened over the last 5 or 6 years, is what I would say the growth really happened, fueled by some, of course, some fantastic decisions from the government side also, opening up the economy and really letting in the global companies to come and work in India, and India being a country, the best cost country as we are known globally. So these were a couple of things which I would say really help the organization to grow from where we were in say 2017 to where we are now.
Right, right. So it clearly indicates there is, a lot of planning and making sure that there are systems that are aligned and there is always, a backup plan. It shows the kind of clarity and conviction it takes at the top. Sridhar, supply chain disruptions have tested even the most resilient systems in recent years. However, you've managed to maintain very high inventory turns. And honestly, that kind of consistency doesn't just come from process, it comes from clarity, discipline, and foresight. In a time when most were firefighting, you were clearly planning. So, what was
Yeah.
the thought process behind it? What did you do differently to keep things lean, responsible, and still so efficient?
So honestly, Priya, inventory turns is one of the key factors in any company's growth, and I think the cash management, the cash flow management was one which really helped us to really focus very strongly on the inventory turns in this organization where I'm currently heading the operations. And inventory turns is basically it's driven by two or three different factors. One of the major factors which drives the inventory turns is the business model itself. So once you have a very robust business model wherein the inventory is managed in such a way that you always have to have a very high inventory turn. So that was the business model we had. So predominantly ours was an assembly manufacturing. So we didn't have to hold any big raw materials in stock. So that was one of the major model, I would say, which worked for us, keeping that high inventory turn. And the second factor, of course, is, as I previously mentioned, the supplier relationship and the vendor managed inventory.
Right.
So our vendors are working with us for the last 20 years. Got a very strong setup of vendors who really helped us to maintain the inventory at a very optimum level and keep supplying just in time, which really fueled the inventory turns month on month, year on year, to have very high inventory turns. Third, of course, is the team itself. I mean, the supply chain team, we had a lot of very good people working with us and very committed team backed by some very strong trainings, what we have gave them over the years, which really helped them and increase their acumen towards inventory and inventory management. And on top of that, we are also having some couple of good softwares, data. You know that inventory has to be managed through a very strong forecast and demand model. So unless you have backup with some very good softwares and very good systems in place, you cannot month on month predict what inventory you need to hold. And here also it was fueled by like I remember to have read in one of a very old book which was written in 1960s by Douglas McGregor on human enterprise. He says that predict and control. That term which stood with me over the years. Like the more accurately you can predict what's coming your way, it's easy to control and manage the whole uh, ecosystem.
Right, right. That's really incredible knowing how, especially how unpredictable those times were.
Absolutely.
Sridhar, you've worked with iconic names both on a national level and at a global level,
Yep.
and each have come with its own scale and complexity. Now, that exposure, it gives you a very different kind of perspective on a global level. From your experience, what truly sets a world-class supply chain apart? What are the ingredients that make it consistently reliable and globally respected?
A couple of things, Priya. I think to have a world-class supply chain, first is, of course, you need to have a very solid supply chain process within your organization. I think that is the key. And of course, backed by a very strong leadership, committed leadership, and a very strong supply chain team. So my supply chain global experience takes me back in 2007 when I had first visited China. Uh,
Mm.
when we had to develop few vendors over there, and that was when I really had a look at what China is doing differently from what we were doing on those days, and really struck me the way they manage their supply chain, the way they manage their entire production systems. That's really, I mean, opened up a lot of chapters in my career from there on. When you say global company, I think India, yes, about 20 years back, when you say yes, we were not that on par with the global manufacturing companies. But today, with the last 5 or 10 years, I am seeing India doing a great step forward in manufacturing with having some very good. Today, it's all about AI and data management. And I think these are some of the things which has driven the country's growth as well as the supply chain growth in the country as such. And even in the manufacturing, you take any automobile today, India is one of the leading automobile manufacturing companies across the world.
True.
I think this is what which is fueling the complete supply chain system across the country and within the manufacturing organization. What we are seeing over the last few years.
Right, right. Um, so Sridhar, thank you for your response. And I think it's a very interesting perspective. It's clear that excellence isn't just about systems, but the mindset behind them.
Yes.
Sridhar, moving forward, we can't help but wonder what's next for you. Do you ever find yourself thinking about what the next chapter for you looks like, especially when it comes to uh, boardroom roles or broader strategic influence, or maybe even the role as a mentor? What kind of impact would you still like to make, either within the industry or at the leadership table?
So, first thing is, Priya, what I would like to really work on is that we have seen a lot of new manufacturing companies, startups, MSMEs coming up in the country, and I am seeing that that is where kind of people like with our experience can really help them to put up very good systems in place, and that's where my focus would be. Yes, get into boards of such companies, young companies, new startup companies, small companies, not the big ones, I would say, the smaller startup companies with a very good, I would say, passion for growth, which will help us to interact with those kind of organizations. I think when you say you touched upon mentoring, yeah, that's where I would be looking forward to
Oh,
mentor the younger and the newer companies to be on their board and then help them to have very good systems in place, very good governance in place, good audit systems, good policies. What we have seen over the years, I would like to put those experience in place with those companies.
absolutely. And I think that there is so much depth in wanting to, contribute at that level.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that with us, Sridhar. Uh, in a space as
Yeah.
complex as manufacturing, staying ahead isn't just
Yeah.
about efficiency anymore. And ESG has quietly become a very
Correct.
powerful differentiator. And it's not just, a checklist or a buzzword, but it does influence who partners with you, who invests, and who stays. So, how do you see ESG readiness turning into a real strategic edge for manufacturers today?
I think ESG is, as you said, is a real buzzword today, Priya. I was
Hmm.
pleasantly surprised when I got the books from Director Institute for this course.
Okay.
I found that three books out of the six were only on ESG.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that really shows that how important it is today to speaking of environment, social governance. I mean, ESG will be there for
Hmm.
many more years to
Hmm.
come. So our experience with ESG, the company where I work currently has got a very high focus on ESG, especially when it comes to sustainability. So we are like, for example, the factory where I work in is working on 100% green power. So we have got into a purchase for power purchase agreement with a private company, and the entire power is sourced through wind power, and the entire factory is running 100% green power. So like this, I mean, ESG environment. When it comes to environment, I look back on a story which we read about Nestle. If you have heard of Nestle, they're one of the largest
Yes.
producers of chocolates. So way
Chocolates.
back
Yeah.
in 2010, they invested about 67 million in a for the farmers deep in Africa for taking them through the complete environment, social governance for procurement of cocoa. So cocoa is one of the main ingredients for their for the
Correct.
chocolates, right? So between 2010 and 2020, they spent almost about 67 million investing solely on ESG. You can imagine the vision of that company way back
Way
15 years
back.
back, way back 15 years back on the ESG. So ESG is a part now in every P&L statement. Like we, for example, when we induct vendors, new vendors, ESG is one of the critical part of our audit. So we would like to see how much investment the company has, the supplier has done on ESG, what processes they have on ESG, how much of governance they have on ESG. So uh, I mean, this is going to stay. I mean, the future of the companies. Whenever a new public issue comes, you have seen that companies declaring how much of investment they have done on ESG. So even in the boardroom discussions, there is a separate topic or a time spent exclusive for ESG, which was not so when we started our career way back in 1990s. I think ESG is going to define. Like for example, our own Prime Minister has put up a very clear vision like by 2070 India is going to become net zero carbon emission, and by 2050 50% of our energy has to come from renewable energy sources. So when the country is thinking, when the manufacturing companies are thinking, when globally everybody's thinking is on ESG, I don't think there's anything more to be said about how important ESG is today in today's scenario.
I can only imagine. Um, Thank you. Thank you for that response. I think it's incredible to hear how operational leadership and sustainable thinking can come together like that.
Absolutely.
Sridhar, you recently joined Directors Institute, and you have mentioned an anecdote, a case study in your previous response. And with
Yep.
your vast leadership experience, and I'm sure you walked in with a, an already seasoned perspective, but we'd love to know what was the experience like for you personally? Was there like a slight change in mindset, a shift in perspectives? We'd love to hear from you.
I was introduced to Director Institute by one of my colleagues. This
Okay,
happened about 7 or 8 months back. So I mean, I never knew. I've not heard of Director Institute till then. So
right,
then I
right.
started listening to their webinars, and I was very impressed the way they have taken up this initiative of bringing in the industry professional into the institute and making them ready to get into the boards. I think that really struck me, which really made me to leap into this at this point in time in my career. Going back into reading books, yeah, it's going to be a tough journey, but I'm sure it's going to help me a long way in my vision of mentoring organizations. So once I complete this course, which is going to take a couple of more months, I think Director Institute is the best thing to have happened to me at this point in time in my career, is what I feel, Priya.
Wow. That's really encouraging to hear, and thank you for your kind words. And it is definitely inspiring to members of the audience to understand that leaders with all who come with all these experience still find time and still find value in investing time and effort in continued learning. So thank you for that. Uh,
Absolutely.
Sridhar, we have neared the end of the interview, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you on FaceTime with Leaders. Thank you so much for taking us through such a thoughtful journey. Your experiences, your insights, and the clarity and with which you have articulated your points and made this conversation truly memorable. So, once again, thank you so much for joining us on FaceTime with Leaders.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to share my experiences, and I sincerely hope that this helps to reach to a larger audience, and for the young and upcoming managers, which we would be very uh, looking forward to help them to take our experiences in the right way forward. Thank you very much once again.
Absolutely. I'm sure our audience definitely will, and the pleasure is all ours. For our audience members, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you found today's episode as enriching as we did. Stay with us for more inspiring stories and powerful conversations right here on FaceTime with Leaders by Directors Institute. Until next time, this is your host, Priya George, signing off. Take care and keep growing.